Hey, everyone. Welcome to our virtual clubhouse. I'm Cheryl Overton. I'm an ad club board member. I'm the Entrepreneurship Committee Chair, and I'm the Chief Experience Officer of my own integrated multicultural marketing consultancy, Cheryl Overton Communications. And on behalf of the ad club, we want to welcome you to the first of our new quarterly series called Entrepreneurs Now. And this is where we'll talk to great thinkers, founders, makers, and doers in the advertising, marketing, and media field. The Ad Club is all about educating, celebrating, and empowering our over 5,000 members. We bring programs like this to you is one of the ways we do that, but we do so much more. So if you're not already a member, to help with your own personal and professional development, to expand your network and business opportunities, we encourage you to join us. And you can do that by visiting our website, theadvertisingclub.org, or by reaching out to me after this session, and we'll tell you more. I also want to thank Susanna Woodley and Soho Works for partnering with us on this series. I'm a Soho Works member, and I'm actually broadcasting for their fantastic Workshare space in Dumbo, New York today. They have been so kind to offer Ad Club members the opportunity to experience their venues live during the month of June. Details were included on the event sign-up page, so go back to that page because we'll show you how you can get a free sample of their co-working spaces. We'll also share the information again via email after the program to everyone who's registered. It's a beautiful space, it's a wonderful community, and it's an absolutely inspiring place. If you're an entrepreneur or even if you work at a large organization, it's a great place to come and work. So today's theme is Truths from the She Session, and I am joined by an illustrious and industrious panel of badass women. I couldn't be more thrilled to share the space with them. So I'm going to present their names in alphabetical order, and I'm going to have them tell you in a minute or less exactly what they do and how fabulously they do it. And the first person I'm going to start with is Allison Arden. She is the founder and CEO of the Elements of Us. Allison, you're up.
Thank you, Cheryl. My name is Allison Arden. I get to be part of this illustrious group of women because I spent my entire career in advertising. And I don't think you ever can leave the industry, but I did step out of the industry about 4 or 5 years ago to create my own company. I've built a framework called the Elements of Us, which is a simple way of thinking about emotions. It's out of the insight that the one thing underlying all of life's biggest challenges and opportunity is emotion. And I realized that because it's invisible, it makes it really hard to talk about. So I created a visible framework to make it visual, tangible, and actionable. And now I help companies and people get their minds around managing well-being and creating greater connections so that we could all succeed together. So that's the work I do, and I'm excited to bring it to all of you and to so many of the companies I get to work with.
Thank you, Allison. The next guest is Renee Blowett. She is the creator and executive producer of She Did That, a documentary that's now on Netflix. Renee?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Cheryl, thank you so much for having me here. So funny to be sitting right across.
We're sitting across from each other, so it's trying to act like we're in a separate place, but.
As Cheryl mentioned, my name is Renee Blowett, and I am a storyteller. I am the creator and executive producer of She Did That, which is the very first full feature documentary centering the journeys of Black women entrepreneurs. I am also the host and producer of a podcast by the same name titled She Did That. And I have really just, after exiting the PR agency world, which is where I met Cheryl, I have really just dedicated my career to telling the stories of Black women entrepreneurs, elevating us, centering us in a world that sometimes overlooks the contributions that we're making to business. So I really love the work I do. Most times it doesn't feel like work because I get to just be surrounded by and be inspired by tons of dynamic women, just like the women here in this conversation today. So thank you again to the Ad Club of New York and to Soho Works for having me today.
Thanks. So next up is Megan Cunningham, and she is the founder and CEO of Magnet Media.
Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl, and the Ad Club. I'm thrilled to be here today, and this engaging discussion is just a great topic. I'm Megan Cunningham, the CEO and founder of Magnet Media, and we are one of the OG of brand storytelling. We just celebrated our 20th year in business, and Magnet tells stories. Thank you. Tells stories.
Sit in that, earn that. That 20 years is a big deal. That's a big deal.
Like 200. So we've been working with a number of leading brands in financial services and technology for the greater part of our history, and have recently launched a e-commerce and healthcare and media and entertainment practice as well. So those are the 5 verticals we focus on. We produce videos and podcasts and virtual events and social content. And I'm just so thrilled to be here and honored to be alongside these other great women. Thanks so much for having me, Cheryl.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least is Cheryl Guerin. She is a fellow board member on the Ad Club board with me, and she's the Executive Vice President for North American Marketing and Communications for MasterCard. They are the creators of the Strivers Initiative. And you might ask, what is a big corporate C-suite person doing on an entrepreneurship panel? Well, Cheryl is an entrepreneurial thinker, and as the creator of the Strivers Initiative, there was nobody I could think who would be more suited to join this call. And so Cheryl, I'll let you talk about yourself and all the great things your team do.
Oh, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Cheryl. I'm thrilled to be here with all of these amazing ladies. And I lead marketing and communications for MasterCard. And speaking of 20 years, it's over 20 years now. It's almost 25 years that the Priceless campaign has been in existence. And I've enjoyed every moment of evolving that brand over the years. And what's so important now for marketers is to be entrepreneurial. We have a responsibility as brands and corporations to give back to society. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is all the work we do with women entrepreneurs. So we'll talk about that more and the Strivers Initiative. But yeah, I'm thrilled to be here with all of you.
Wonderful. And I told you guys a little bit about me earlier, but just more, I think 20 years seems to be the magic number we're all talking about. I've been in this business for 20 plus years, building my career on the global agency side of things, starting in public relations and migrating over the years to traditional advertising, where I have always been a champion, a storyteller, and just a proponent for stories that really center women and tell the truth about women and present them in an honorable way. I do the same now, but I'm focused on multicultural audiences. And because women, we're the ones who make those decisions in terms of what we buy and how we influence, it does seem that I am still dealing with women every day when I work with brands, et cetera. As someone who went from agency life to entrepreneur life while being a member of the Ad Club and a board member of the Ad Club, I am so gratified that they were open to creating a program that talks to the many of us in the club who are entrepreneurs, who might not work inside an organization like Cheryl or for one of the large agencies. And so it's a real opportunity for us to expand our programming and serve a population of our community that is growing, that is doing incredible work, and that has been doing incredible work for quite some time. We're not new to this, but I think it's really wonderful that the Ad Club is embracing us. So just to set our grounding about this whole notion of the she session, and I know everybody has heard this phrase and seen this hashtag over the past year. So much has been reported in everywhere from BuzzFeed to NPR. Even more recently, Digiday did an entire article about the advertising industry and the impact of the she session. But to ground us all, it's called the she session because this is the first economic recession that is impacting more women than men, according to the history books. It is the first time in our country's history that this has happened. And the reason for that are some of the gender inequities that we all know. Work-life balance, the fact that we're now living and working at home over the past year and women having sort of the 9 to 5 and then the 5 to 9 to contend with. women having to become the school teachers as well as the cooks and the cleaners, et cetera, over the past year. That's not to say that our men don't share the burdens, but we know who the majority falls to. And if you also are a career woman, particularly in a business like this, where clients are on the phone and expecting things, it can be a challenge. We are not here to say that this hasn't been a challenging time. I read a recent article from the Skim. They just recently surveyed some women, a lot of millennial women, and what has been on their minds over the past year, I think it echoes for all of us, but the statistics to me are very compelling. 24% of them have gone into therapy in the past year because the pandemic and the impact of all of these things on our lives. We need an outlet. We need a healthy outlet. And I know Allison is going to really share with us ways we can do that. 17% of these women that were surveyed lost their jobs in the past year. 16% of them grew their families in some way. 33% of them rescheduled a major life event. I think we all have seen weddings get postponed and anniversaries and visiting family. That has taken its toll as well. 70% of the women surveyed have thought about their mental health more frequently. And 45% of them have reconsidered their careers. So we've all felt this. There are challenges with all of the conditions we're living under. But one of the things that inspired today's session is that coverage has been very doom and gloom. People focusing on, gee, all of these losses that women are suffering and how women will never regain traction. What is it going to take to even get us back to equilibrium, much less thrive capacity? And while I think it's important for us to recognize and be truthful about the challenges we faced in the past year, you know, I'm from a place of abundance, and I'm a person who the glass is always half full. I think it's really important for those of us who have found growth opportunities, resources of strength, and opportunities to bond and build our networks over the past year. It's incumbent upon us to share how we did that so that others can feel the same. We don't want women in this industry coming up believing there's no way that they can make up that difference. So to get this conversation started, I thought we'd take it back old school, that old school icebreaker back in the day when we used to all get together for conferences and meetings in the same place. There used to be this exercise, 2 truths and a lie. I think it's kind of corny, but you know what? It always works and it helps open people up. So today we're going to do 2 truths and a lie about the She session. This is our opportunity, panelists, to be vulnerable about what we've experienced, what we've overcome, and maybe what the coverage about the She session might be getting wrong. So I'm actually going to start with my namesake, Cheryl Guerin. I'm going to just start with you. Why don't you tell us, and we'll make it a little easier. Give us 1 truth and give us 1 lie. You don't have to tell us which is which, and base it on your personal experience over the past year or what you've observed. And then we'll follow with others on the panel.
I mean, a truth is, and okay, you're asking for us to be vulnerable, so I'm changing my answer right now. The truth is, I'm tired. The truth is, I'm tired. On the positive side of that is, it's just, we're running in overdrive. So whether you're in marketing or communications, or you're an entrepreneur and you own your own business, regardless of anything, if you think about our industry, we've had to rethink every single message over and over and over again. We've had to rethink and replan every single program. And let's face it, rethink every single dollar that's being invested and why, where, push it out, push it back, stop, go, all the planning and unplanning. It's exhausting. But I have to say, you know, one of the things that's, you know, a bit of a misnomer is, you know, women are also thriving, and the level of innovation and entrepreneurialism that's out there, and people are coming up with new ways to run their businesses, new ways to connect and get ideas from each other. I think networking has so odd that there was no networking events in person, and I know you can't completely replace that, but the amount of networking and support that's been out there for women is important. And what I would say is, in the spirit of the fact that I just said I'm tired, it's also okay it's true to say you're tired. There's support, there's resources. We've been really focused here on at Mastercard on mental health, and we blocked noon to 1. We blocked 8:30 we blocked 8 to 9 o'clock. We've given summer Fridays now here in the afternoons and said no meetings on Fridays, because people need a mental break of what's going on. And in order for that innovation and that entrepreneurial thinking to happen, your mind needs a break. Your mind needs a little bit of a break from this always on the go. And, you know, I'm really proud of the, you know, our team here and some of the things they've developed. But so you mentioned, and I'll talk more later about it, but Path to Priceless we created as part of the Strivers Initiative. And it's a mentorship program, bringing women together to learn from each other. There are so many positive stories and role models out there. Sometimes we need to shine a light on this, because when all the doom and gloom is being said, you have to have hope and optimism, as you said, Cheryl, and shining that light. We did this with a campaign with Jennifer Hudson where we said "Ant No Mountain High Enough" was the anthem of the.
Put a pin in it, Cheryl.
I'll come back later.
We're gonna come back
I'll
to
come
that.
back to that. But anyway,
Give it all away now. You get ready.
there it is.
Okay.
There it is.
Love it. Because I want to hear from Megan. I want to hear your one truth and your one lie about the She session, because I know your company has had a gangbusters year. So tell us what's something that you've been reading about. What's your truth, and what's something that's kind of not so true that the world might not know about?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think the truth, if I'm totally 1000% honest here, is that my team was the one that came through for me this year. And I'd love to claim, yeah, I'm a great leader, you know, but the fact is, so much of where we found answers to tough problems over this past year in every facet, in the transition to remote work and the client adaptation and navigation and, you know, all of this, right? Transitioning all of our live events to virtual, like in a minute, in a New York minute, that was done by my team. And I have to say that that's a hard truth. It's a humbling truth to realize my job is put them together and get out of the way. but really, the solution came from a lot of collaboration and a lot of hard work by thoughtful people that work for me. So I'm grateful for that. I think the lie is that a lot of the learnings and sort of adaptation that we've all faced, the evolution that we've all faced, is like done. It's, excuse me, in the rearview mirror. And now we can go back to, you know, sort of all this, you know, sort of transition work that we've gone through. I don't think it's business as usual as we start to reopen. I think that it is, especially when it comes to women and helping our sister agencies and our friends in the business recover and support one another and really step up. How can we create more support among one another and take the next generation to the next level?
Yeah.
I think that is, to me, the biggest work ahead of us.
I hope it's not business as usual. What a waste. What we learned over the past year plus would be if we just revert back to old behavior, right?
Totally. And I think it, you know, just as not to be on my soapbox, but I think that, you know, I think the toughest part is we have a lot to navigate as we come back, right? But the fact is that self-care and prioritization of the things that Cheryl's mentioned around mental health and wellness, and, you know, I'm sure Allison will speak to that, and Renee's, you know, inspiring work, you know, having those role models and continuing to be intentional about what we want to take forward, I think is what I'm obsessed with right now.
Cool. Good segue. Renee, what's your truth and what's your lie?
My truth sounds a lot like Cheryl's. Prior to 2020, I did not realize that I was running on fumes. I was all over doing all the things, barely saying no to opportunities because I felt like I didn't have the luxury to say no at this point in my career for what I was trying to build. And so when things slowed down, while it was devastating, well, actually it came to a halt. It was devastating, but I started to settle into it and I realized like, girl, you needed this break. Like you needed to take a seat. And I was able to find some joy in it, you know, amidst all the world being on fire. I got to spend some time with family that I never would have been able to do before. I'm a new auntie, so I got to help my sister with that. So I appreciate a lot of the personal things I've been able to achieve, you know, as the world kind of slowed down. The lie, and a couple of us have already mentioned this, but it is, while this year has been really challenging, I am seeing so many women doing amazing things that I don't even know, not to say that they weren't capable of, but because there is this lens on the Black community, and seems to be specifically on Black women, I am seeing women in my network that I'm talking to on the podcast, reaching milestones that they've been working for years. Like a woman who was just on the podcast, Tia Williams, she has been writing books forever, like forever. And she just made the New York Times bestseller list yesterday. Another woman who was on the podcast has been on the new, you know, like there are all these opportunities coming towards Black women. And while the way that we got here is not ideal, I love to see us taking advantage of this time and really holding brands and just the world responsible for this not just being a moment, for us really getting the shine and the respect that we deserve. So
I love that. I like to say that's the ancestors shining down,
Yes.
giving us that push that we need.
Yeah.
I intentionally want Allison to answer this question last because I want to take some notes because I know she'll have some advice for all of us there. But talk to us, Allison, about your truth and your lie about the She Session.
Well, thank you. I echo everything that everybody has said. In truth, the pandemic and this time did allow me some time to kind of reset and ground me. I've been doing the work that I've been doing for 4 or 5 years, as I said, and the mental health issues are not new. So I think that's the myth. I think we've all gotten really comfortable now about at least talking about them. So in the work that I do, it's about not only saying what's wrong, but actually giving ourselves agency to understand that when we feel a certain way, there are so many things that we can do about them, and giving people the tools that they can use. And there are so many that we have in our arsenal that we can use. I love some of what Cheryl was talking about the programs that they're bringing to MasterCard. And this isn't a one and done. This is going to continue to evolve. You know, we like the certainty of thinking like we have it all figured out, especially as women. We tend to be, and I'll speak for myself, we tend to sit in perfectionism and put a ton of pressure on ourselves to figure it out and get it perfect. And we don't. I've started thinking about things as an experiment. Everything has become a little bit of an experiment. And it really does take the pressure off of saying, I don't know that it's going to turn out exactly how I think it's going to turn out, but we're going to try. And if it doesn't, it's okay. You know, we are all a work in progress. Like I've started actually relating to the Thomas Edison quote, I've tried 10,000 ways. I haven't failed. I've tried 10,000 ways that haven't worked yet. You know, and there's something kind of fun and kind of inspiring and just okay about that. But I think to the point that everybody's made, we are in a moment of time and we have such an opportunity to really transform how we move forward. I've been saying we're in what I call the emotional revolution. And I know in the advertising business, we've been talking about the fourth industrial revolution, about how we're infusing AI and IoT into every piece of what we're doing. But we've actually been living in this, what I think of as the emotional revolution, since a few years after the start of the digital age. Like this started as email started making it not okay to just step away and stop working, or social media became, you know, we are the same, you know, we are visible in a way, there's no hiding, right? We're all, and actually the younger generation who were the digital natives, there's research that shows that when young women in particular have been exposed to digital technology and social media and given cell phones before the age of 16, they have a higher propensity of anxiety and depression. And so these issues are rising, and it is incumbent upon all of us to learn how to deal with them, learn how to talk about them, and realize that we together can figure this out. And this is going to continue to evolve. So we just have to kind of be engaged for the future. And I love that we all are here able to talk about it.
Thank you. Your answer, it really segues into my truth and my lie is all interconnected. And it really speaks to what you just shared, Allison. I think, this past year has given us all permission, as Renee said, also to sort of let go of some of that alpha female, powerful woman, got it all together, Black girl magic. Let me list them all. Superwoman, all of those things that we were wearing as badges, or that we thought we had to keep up this very impossible level, just to be ready, and especially in a service industry like ours. And I think the past year plus has not only given us all permission, we needed it, first of all, that vulnerability. I can't believe there might be a fire drill happening at Soho Works while we're live. Excuse this noise.
Oh, an experiment, it's okay.
There you go. I want the noise to stop. Anyway, this used to happen in the real world, where a fire drill would happen in the middle of a pitch or something. In any event, we are, it's given us permission to be more human, to be more real, to be more vulnerable, and prepare ourselves for what's ahead. Oh, this is very distracting. Oh, there we go. It's over. Yay. In any event, that the sort of lie about the superwoman, I think is caught up in the truth. And so one of the things that I've been able to do, my goodness, is prioritize the self-care, really focus on my own health and wellness. Oh my goodness.
We have received an alarm in the building. We are investigating their situation.
I can't believe this is happening during our live broadcast. Thank you guys for your patience. Anyway, to make sure that that I sort of focused on being mentally and physically fit for whatever the challenges would be ahead. And it gave me an opportunity to really prioritize my physical health and wellness. We're at home, so I had to cook for myself more, something I love to do, but something that has really supported those health and wellness goals. And I have never felt better and more energetic, and had more clarity of mind and more creative inspiration to face the next chapter. And I think it has to do with the fact that we all had to sort of slow it down, focus more inward, and stay in the house, stay out the streets, which, we do here in New York a lot. Anyway, I want to move on to the next sort of area of conversation, especially before the next alarm goes off, whatever that is. And I really want to talk about opportunity scouting and opportunity curation that the team might have done. I'd love to hear from you all. Tell me about an opportunity you found, or a chance you took that propelled your brand or your business specifically during this time of this She session. You all, in your 2 truths and a lie, or 1 truth and a lie, talked about opportunities that you found. Give us one anecdote of a specific way that you took that chance, and how doing so during the pandemic and the racial reckoning, how that propelled you and what that gave you. Why don't we start with Renee?
Why did I unmute?
Oops.
I wasn't supposed to do that.
That's okay.
Okay, so one opportunity that I took advantage of over the last year plus was, as Cheryl mentioned, just the time that we had. I had been thinking about launching a podcast probably since like 2017, 18, but I never really had the bandwidth to do it, considering I was, always on the go. So I decided, while we were all at home, like, there's no better time than now to launch this podcast that you've been thinking about. I'm also a busybody, so it also gave me that like tangible thing to produce that I needed. Because while I slowed down, it was hard to like drop that need to always be producing and always doing something. So my way of kind of feeding that desire was launching a podcast. And it really gave me an opportunity to reimagine what community looks like for the brand that I've built. We weren't meeting, in person. So it gave me a chance to connect with women across so many different industries. And some good news is that it actually gave me a chance to build a partnership that I may not have even explored before. I just signed on to Dear Media, which is one of the largest podcast networks for women's stories, in really good company. Tracy Ellis Ross just announced her podcast on the network. So these are things that I don't believe that I would have really stopped and invested time in if I was just out doing all the things that I was doing in 2019. So that was kind of like the silver lining for me.
That's fantastic, Renee. Congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
Wonderful. I'm going to turn it over next to Cheryl G. And I want you to answer with what you want, but I want you to specifically talk about the Strivers Initiative now, because what an opportunity, not just for MasterCard, but for thousands of Black female founders around the world. So would you please tell us a little bit about that opportunity that you helped bring and birth and bring to the world?
Sure, proudly. And, we were looking at, we'd already been doing work over the years focused on female entrepreneurs, but when we saw what was happening with COVID, I mean, in particular, even pre-COVID, I mean, Black women entrepreneurs were really driving the economy forward, right? Like opening up businesses at a higher rate than any other segment and really growing the economy and frankly, society, right? And what we saw when COVID hit was 41% of Black-owned businesses had to shut down between, there goes the fire alarm, the fire marshal, between February and April, we saw 41% of small businesses, Black-owned small businesses close, either temporarily or sadly permanently. And this really created a setback. So we wanted to do something about it. And so a few things came about. One, we wanted to shine a light on those that were thriving and innovating during this time. Those women that were getting their businesses digital, right? At times where they desperately needed to survive and thrive. So we launched a campaign, the Strivers Initiative, featuring Jennifer Hudson, who gave this a voice. And we used an anthem of Ain't No Mountain High Enough because that's what this signified. And the campaign shined a light on these wonderful women and what they're doing. But then also we launched Digital Doors, which was all about how we get more businesses into the digital economy, move people digital. And we focused on particularly Black women-owned businesses. And we launched also with the Fearless Fund, a grant program as well that went along with that. And so there were so many things that we've done and partnerships throughout this, but it didn't stop there. We knew that mentorship was important. We always heard this. Mentorship was the number one thing women wanted because they want to learn from each other and connect and have somebody to call to ask the question and just be there for support. And so we created a mentorship program so people could come together. In fact, there was a session yesterday and today even. So it launched online, and we've been going and doing road shows in different cities around the country with government officials, local city officials, women, Black women, small business owners sharing their needs and having a voice, and then putting on a Digital Doors education session. Again, how do we quickly get your businesses online and thriving? And by the way, everybody needs to go digital in some way, shape, or form. This gave us an opportunity to kind of rethink what we were doing at the company and get it out faster and help businesses at large. But it just is very fulfilling to be doing this and actually, making a difference.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And what I love about, first of all of those programs, just so grounded, so based on data driven and designed to really serve the audiences that you intend to serve and the purpose that you intend to put forth. But importantly, I think your voice in this conversation is When those who are sitting on in our virtual audience, if you work at a big brand, if you work in-house at a large corporation and you think, well, what's my skin in this game of entrepreneurship? Like, what can I do? How can I lend my resources or voice, or should I? I think that MasterCard is a great example of an insight that you learned about your customer base, or a B2B insight, ways that you can innovate your business and really center the entrepreneurship journey as a vehicle to reach other people or to talk about some of your services. So thanks for sharing that. I wanted to ask Allison to share next if there was a particular opportunity or door or window that opened or that you kicked in over the past year to help grow your brand.
Yes. First of all, I totally echo what you were saying about the data-driven insight that led to this amazing campaign. I think that's fantastic. So congratulations. I went back to school, and that is something that I never would have thought I was doing. If you would have told me that even a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have thought that was a thing that was happening. But and for anybody who is watching this, I will recommend a book called The Choice by Dr. Edith Eva Eger. And I simply was looking for, I don't read enough like kind of physical books. And I was looking for a book to read last summer, and I found this on one of the summer reading lists. And it is a fantastic book. I won't give it away, but I highly recommend it. But one of the things that this woman says is underlying everyone's kind of what's holding people back is some kind of insecurity. And if you can truly get to the heart of what that is for you, you will be able to transform and you will be able to kind of break through. And instantly when I read that, what came up for me was that I'm not a psychologist. So I was a girl who came out of advertising, who created a framework to make well-being and mental health and talking about emotion easier. And I would go around talking about it. Everybody looked at it and said, yes, this makes 100% sense. But but how did this happen? And so I decided to, I suddenly said, I'm not a psychologist. I decided, what's stopping me from going back to school? And so I instantly, I waited 2 weeks before I broke it to my husband, and then finally gave voice to it and decided to go back. So I have gone back now for my master's in psychology, and I'm currently learning basic statistics so that I could actually make it into the intermediate statistics class, which starts next week. But I've taken several classes. It has, initially it was about like, oh, it'll check the box. Like I'll have that answer to when somebody says, do you have a psychology background? It has done so much for me in terms of validating my thinking, opening me up to the idea that it's okay to not be right, like in that environment. And it's so enriching and so engaging. So it's not going to be the same for every person, but everybody has that. And so if you are part of this session and suddenly you're looking at going into a new field or have to start again or whatever that is for you, figure out what's going to hold you back and just take it head on is what I would say. It has been really, really fantastic. And, and yeah, I'll leave it there, but it's,
I love it.
That's my thing.
Congratulations to you, and yes to fearlessness forever and always. So, you're never too old. And if you've got a curiosity, I think we owe it to ourselves to pursue that, right? All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit because we've got some questions coming in, but we also have one area that we know all of the Ad Club webinars and programs, everybody always wants to hear a word of advice from the panelists. Like they want to dive into your experience and what you've learned and what you know. So wanting for those who are on the virtual audience, would love to hear from each of our panelists. What is the one thing that you would offer in terms of advice for women in the advertising, marketing, and media field? One of the things that Oprah Winfrey says is, this is the one thing I know for sure, So when you think about the one thing for sure, coming out of the past year plus, what advice can you offer to the young women, not even young women, like all women who are listening to us and at various ages and stages of their career in this business? Would love to hear a word of advice. I'm going to start with Megan, and then I'll spread it around after that.
I think the advice that I would give is that being present is the key to how to figure out how to move forward. And so wherever you're at, you are, overwhelmed by opportunity or by a setback. I think figuring out how to be present is probably the number one thing that I took from this year. And I'll just give one quick example, if you don't mind, Cheryl, which is we had, it's funny, I had the very last dinner party before COVID, was a dear friend of mine, who I also met through Chief, which is the network that Cheryl and I connected through originally. She had a very eclectic, amazing group of women who were all, in different executive roles. And I really hit it off with this woman, Judith Kerr, who runs Harper One, which is a imprint at HarperCollins. She had just moved over from Simon Schuster. And
I know Judith.
She's a wonderful.
She's awesome.
Sort of my last friend before we were all in isolation, last new friend. And it was just a social connection. And we were just like, reflecting on our careers and, what she was trying to do with Zora Neale Hurston's archive that she was relaunching with some incredible Black artists. And just, she had signed, I think, Bakari Sellers and a number of other incredible memoirs, Cicely Tyson, that was coming out with over the coming year. And I was so inspired and like jotting down all the names of the books that she was, that I needed to read. And it turned out like 4 weeks later, when we were in, this crazy pandemic moment where everyone realized this wasn't going to be a temporary stay, but something that we needed to adapt to, that she reached out and said, I need to figure out how we relaunch books when I can't send authors to physical bookstores. And the conversation was never about work. It was never about, sort of like, oh, let me figure out how do I pitch this big, sort of media titan. It was much more personal. And I think I in a prior world would have not had the presence of mind to just really be there and listen and sort of trying to connect on a personal level, on a human level. But it led to an enormous opportunity for our company. And frankly, for them, we drove a major digital transformation initiative there. And we're very honored to have many New York Times bestsellers last year through, teaching their authors how to be active in the social and digital world. So that was a super exciting, I think, outcome of something that was just sort of a personal goal of mine, which is to start meditating and be a better listener.
Oh, wow. Thanks for that. And congratulations. The proof is in the pudding on that one, huh? That's great. How about you, Cheryl? One word of advice, or maybe not one word, but what's your advice?
It'll be quick. Let's see. I mean, really is just think about how you could have an impact. I think everything we do, you can achieve what you're trying to achieve for your business, for the corporation you work, and you can also find ways to have an impact on people's lives. And I really this is the mantra we take on. And I tell you, it's so fulfilling and meaningful. And it's sort of the way of the future of marketing. We talk about all the data and AI, and yes, that's all true. But how do you make a meaningful impact on people's lives? Then you're going to get advocacy, and you'll be so fulfilled in what you're doing. And by the way, that gives me the energy to keep going.
Thank you so much. How about you, Renee? What are your words of advice for folks on the chat?
I'm laughing because I feel like every time Cheryl says something, it's like exactly what I was thinking. And I guess because the work that she's doing is so in alignment with
there
the
you
work
go.
I'm doing. So I'll say two things. The first one is focus on being of service. I have found that the work that I have done, which is basically all of it, is centering Black women, empowering Black women. And this last year has taken a toll on so many of us, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But when I really dig into the work, knowing that the work I'm doing is bigger than me, it just fuels me and it feels so good. The other thing, and I know you said one, but I'll make this quick.
That's
done
okay.
is better than perfect, because perfect just doesn't get done and it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So as women, I think we are pretty hard on ourselves, thinking that things have to be a certain way before we put it out into the world. And I just encourage us to get things done and, finesse it along the way. But let's stop looking for things to be perfect before we share it, because we could be blocking someone else's blessings through the work we're doing.
You better hashtag TM, register that. Done is better than perfect. I like that. That's very good. Allison, how about you?
Yeah, so I loved everything everyone said, but I'm going to go super tactical because we, as women, because we put pressure on ourselves, we see big visions and want to get so much done. What I've learned is that if you quarter by quarter can break it down and say, what are the 3 things I absolutely want to get done this quarter? And you can make them pretty big, but those are going to be, that's where you could put your energy, and then track yourself. And what you'll see, it might take longer than the quarter, but it might take 4 or 5 months, but you start to see progress. And if, and keep going, right? But if you, so many times there's so much we want to get done that we're just, we are not able to be present, to Megan's point. We are just so focused on, we're not getting enough done and there's so much we want to do. So I would say do that. And if you are, again, someone who has been knocked out of the workforce because of this session, or you're starting a business, or even if you're just trying to break an account or whatever it is you're trying to do, if somebody doesn't get back to you the first time you sent a note to them, it's not that they're not interested. It's not that they're ignoring you. It may be that they mean to get back to you. It may be that, the email didn't go, whatever it is, but keep going, persevere, and stay out of your head.
I love that advice. I would just sort of not just double click on it, but like emphasize it. I think all too often we personalize it. It feels like a wound if someone doesn't respond in the timing that we've set or what we've determined to be, then it means this. It actually may not mean anything. It also may mean you don't know what other people are going through, or it also may mean it's not the right opportunity for them at this right time. Now, I'm a big person on responding, but that's okay too, if it's not right at this time. If it's not everything is meant for you at this time, and that's okay. That shouldn't be wounding. I guess my word of advice would be, and I am absolutely echoing everything you guys have said. It's so amazing. But my word of advice for women would be, no is a complete sentence. All too often we make a decision and we don't feel comfortable about it. So we offer a lot of explanation and disclaimers and ways back in. We should be comfortable when something doesn't feel right for us. We should be comfortable standing in our truth and in our decision, and no further explanation or disclaimer is needed. So I am thrilled to say that we have some questions in the chat. We don't have time for all of them, but we do have a few, and I wanted to open it up. Let's answer the entrepreneurship question. The question is, you've all become entrepreneurs after careers in the industry. Do you think young women coming out of school are better off starting in the industry, or can you start on an entrepreneur path without working for a company? What's your opinion about that, Megan?
Wow, that's a really tough one. I made the choice to be almost an accidental entrepreneur, and I won't go through all my journey because I know time is tight. We want to get to questions, but I'll say that I did start out briefly in corporate media, and I think the 2 reasons why I left were I was working at PBS and HBO, and really grateful at the time for those roles, but the pace was so much slower than my pace at the time. And I don't see that as a benefit to me. I saw that as a huge gap, but I didn't know how to work in sort of a multi-year creative development sort of fashion. And so I was not going to be successful in that environment. That was the fact. It wasn't that entrepreneurship that I chose entrepreneurship. It really chose me. And then I would say the second thing that really frustrated me at the time, which hopefully we've done our small part to help change, has been around diversity and inclusion, which was just non-existent in media and entertainment at the time. It wasn't even a concern, and that bored me. Frankly, I felt the stories were too similar and homogeneous. And so I think in terms of today's world, I feel like there is a clear path on certain types of startups to take a leap of faith and bet on yourself. But I would be really realistic about having a income stream that's reliable, because having financial stress when you're young and don't know what other options to pursue, or racking up credit card debt, as I'm sure those on the panel can talk about, to try to live while you're growing a business, is not a great choice, and it's a tough path to get off, a treadmill to get off. So I would say be realistic about the type of startup model that you're pursuing. And if you are in a fortunate position to take that leap, you should bet on yourself and take it, because it's a great time to be a female entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Megan. We've got a question for Allison. How do we overcome the fear and insecurity to pivot when it becomes paralyzing? Allison, I know you've got so many strategies to sort of help people get unstuck. Can you offer a word of advice or something that people can try when they are feeling paralyzed by their fears?
Sure. One of the biggest antidotes to anxiety is action. And so taking a breath and moving forward is, just start moving, because the more you sit and the more you ruminate about it and the more you stress about it, the more overwhelming it becomes. I had one of my last new friends that I made right before the pandemic is a psychologist. I actually did a podcast with her. Her name is Dr. Leslie Coppell, and she talked about this idea of standing on the top of a mountain, holding your anxiety ball. And if you let that anxiety ball go, it's going to travel down the mountain, and the further away it goes, the faster it goes and the scarier it becomes. But if you hold it tight and you take care of it and you nurture it, it's all going to be okay. So it's like, live where your feet are, stay present, and you will figure it out. The other thing with uncertainty is, to make it more certain, we tend to jump to tend to make up a whole scenario that is probably worst case scenario that gives you some form of certainty, and it's actually not true. So stop making stuff up to make it feel more certain, and just start getting comfortable in the uncertainty. Think of it as an adventure, an experiment, and just start taking steps.
Thank you. So great, so inspirational. We are going to just take one more, and then we have to end, because I can't even believe how fast this time went. But here's a question, and I'll give this to Renee. Apply it to your now business, because I think the words we're using are client, but I think it applies. What challenges do you face when breaking into a new client as an entrepreneur versus when you worked for a company? More importantly, how did you overcome that when you were no longer sort of having all that buffer and resources? How did you start to step in and establish your own brand and secure new clients or partners? What are some words that you can offer in that case?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to reposition it in my mind for what I'm doing. I think that we need to, and this is something that I tell myself all the time, just because you haven't done something in this exact way does not mean that you are not equipped to do it. So, for example, when I started working on the documentary, I found myself always saying to people, kind of like justifying, like, I'm a new filmmaker, and kind of like setting them up, I guess, or managing their expectations. And I had to really stop and say, but you have been telling stories all of your career, like PR is storytelling for brands. And so I had to really think about how I was taking all of those years of PR experience and that form of storytelling and applying it to what I'm doing today. So, and I'm not sure, hopefully this is answering the question, but let's not play down
transferable skills. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't cutting you off. I was echoing what you're saying.
That's pretty much it. Just don't play down your experiences. If you really look at, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that everything we do is leading us to where we are now. And so, even the experience that I got in PR and ad agencies, working with brands, knowing what they're looking for in partnerships, I was able to apply that to my film and build brand partnerships with huge brands. And a lot of filmmakers didn't understand how I did it. And I was like, well, this is what I gathered from my PR agency experience. So really think long and hard about, where you've been and how you can apply it to where you are and where you're going. And I'm sure you will find some parallels there that you can really leverage.
I love that, Renee. And I think you're right. You don't need to have a different set of skills. What do you know, or what can you bring into your orbit to help propel you? I think we should all just take a critical look, not only at our own skills and the own steam that we provide, but our networks, and how can we leverage our networks to help us push forward. Being an entrepreneur, some people, I know there's the word solopreneur and all these things. You can't do this alone. I think as Megan stated at the beginning, her team is really so critical to this. We all have a team. It may look and feel differently depending on what we do, but relying on others. I would just add to what Renee said in terms of those things. The work you're doing now, whether you work for someone else, whether you're working on your own, whether you're sitting, alone at home at a desk writing tirelessly, the work, your reputation for excellence, the quality that you put out, this is your CV, should you choose to go into entrepreneurship, that you can rely upon. The way that you get that door open, the way that you have credibility from the first day you hang out your shingle is everything about what you did in the past. So please don't think that if you're the junior person on an account now, that it doesn't count someday, should you have entrepreneurial dreams for yourself. I would also say entrepreneurship, sort of in that independent definition, might not be for everyone. But an entrepreneurial mindset, as Cheryl described what happens at MasterCard and in other organizations, could serve you well. So I want to make sure that in this series, both today and in the series events to follow, we're not trying to glamorize this life, but if it is your calling, if it is for you, there is a space and there is a path and there is wonderful things, that wonderful learnings and wonderful outcomes and benefits that you can get. But if you are someone who has decided that the corporate life is for you, you can still take some insight and some information from the things we're going to be talking about. I want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for telling us more about the work you do. And I hope that everyone in the virtual audience links in with you, buys your books, looks into your companies, etc. And I also want to thank Soho Works for being our partner for the Entrepreneurship series, for hosting Renee and I today. We are going to have 2 more Entrepreneur Now events this year. We're going to have one in September and one in December. So be on the lookout for those invites. And in between these entrepreneurship panels, the Ad Club offers so much information and so many programs virtually. There's a ton of stuff on the website. So please don't forget to go to the advertisingclub.org and learn about membership. It is so worth it. And the network and community that the Ad Club creates is just so collaborative and wonderful. So I really encourage everyone within earshot to join us. We have a lot of fun together. Everyone have a safe and healthy and peaceful rest of your summer. And we'll see you next time inside the Ad Club, the virtual clubhouse. Thanks everybody for joining today.
Thank you,
Thank
Cheryl.
you, guys.
Cheryl. Thanks.